I hadn't planned to return to the cabin that weekend. But a sudden change in my work schedule gave me the perfect excuse. The city was stuffy, the noise unbearable, and I needed peace. My cabin tucked in the woods just off Lake Verona was my escape. So I packed light, hit the road, and drove through the night. The HOA for the cabin community had always been intense. Strict rules on noise, decor, guest passes, even grill sizes. Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, ruled it all. She wasn't elected, just loud, controlling, and always watching. They called her Karen unironically. It just fit too well. When I pulled into my driveway, something was already off. There were 3 unfamiliar cars parked on my gravel drive. Smoke drifted lazily above my roof. Someone was grilling. Voices, laughter, and music echoed across my patio. My heart dropped, and anger bubbled up immediately. This wasn't a shared lot. This was my private property. I didn't rent it out. I didn't give anyone permission. And yet, strangers were partying on my deck like it was theirs. I grabbed my phone and began recording before stepping out. The moment I rounded the corner, I saw them all. There were at least 7 people lounging in lawn chairs. One man was flipping burgers on my BBQ grill. Another couple sipped wine from my glassware. Rio Riel, they didn't notice me right away, which made it worse. It looked like a damn catalog ad for outdoor luxury. Then I saw her. Karen stood near my garden beds with a red Solo cup, wearing her signature sun visor and a smug little smile. She turned to laugh at something just as she spotted me, and her face dropped like a rock into cold water. Double quotes. "Oh, you're back early," she said, blinking rapidly. Her tone wasn't apologetic. It was annoyed, even defensive. I stared at her, in disbelief, gripping my phone tighter. "Yes, Karen, because this is my property. What is this?" She took a step forward, arms crossed like I was the intruder. "This is a community appreciation BBQ," she sniffed. "We weren't using the place, so I thought why not?" I blinked, barely believing what I was hearing. "You thought?" "Karen, this isn't a community park. It's mine." A few of her friends started shifting nervously in their seats. One of them, a tall man in boat shoes, stood up. "Hey man, we didn't know. Karen said it was fine." I nodded, jaw clenched. "Well," Karen lied. The guy raised his hands. "We'll pack up, no problem." But Karen wasn't done embarrassing herself yet. "Actually," she snapped, "you weren't scheduled to be here." My eyes narrowed. "Scheduled? I own this property, Karen. You agreed to share usage dates at the HOA meeting," she insisted. "No, you suggested it, and I never agreed." I pulled up my HOA contract on my phone. No such clause exists. "This isn't a timeshare," I said. Karen's cheeks flushed red, and her voice got shrill. "You're being aggressive. You're making everyone uncomfortable." I almost laughed. I was making them uncomfortable. "Karen, you broke into my property. This is trespassing." "I have a key," she declared, as if that made it okay. That was true, unfortunately. A spare had been left years ago, meant for emergencies only, under strict HOA policy. Apparently, Karen thought emergency meant throwing a BBQ. I immediately texted my locksmith to change the locks. "You've seriously lost it," I said, turning the camera on her. Her hand shot out toward the phone. "Stop filming me." I stepped back. Not a chance. This is for evidence. She looked around, realizing her guests were watching too. And just like that, she turned to her ultimate weapon. Karen called the cops. She pulled out her phone like it was a sword. "I'm reporting a disturbance," she hissed into it. My jaw dropped again. "A disturbance? On my property?" Karen turned away, still pretending to be the victim. Her friends started packing things into their cars quickly. 15 minutes later, red and blue lights pulled up. The officer stepped out calmly and walked toward us. Karan rushed up to him before he even spoke. "He's being hostile. He's threatening everyone," she exclaimed. The cop looked at me, then at my phone recording. I stood quietly, hands visible, no aggression in sight. "This is your place?" the officer asked, approaching me. "Yes, officer. I have the deed lease and ID right here." Karen scoffed behind him. "It's a shared cabin lot." I handed over the documents without saying a word. The officer looked them over, nodded, and returned them. "Ma'am," he said, turning to Karen, "this is private property." Karen's mouth opened like a fish out of water. But the HOA rules. Wasn't supposed to be here. He doesn't need permission to access his own cabin. Karen tried again, grasping at straws. They all feel unsafe. Ah! The officer looked around. Her guests were gone. "Looks like it's just you now," he said dryly, nearly smirked. As Karen's face began to twitch, she pointed at the grill. "He's filming me without consent. In public or semi-public settings, that's not illegal," he replied, "especially on his own property." Karen finally seemed to realize she had lost. Still, she muttered curses under her breath and stomped off. I asked the officer to log the incident anyway. After he left, I stood on my deck in silence. The smell of smoke, spilled wine, and Karen's perfume lingered. I walked around, inspecting damage and missing items. A few dishes, a broken chair, some trampling in the garden. But mostly, it was just the sheer nerve of it all. I changed the locks that night, just to be safe. The locksmith laughed when I explained the situation. You'd be surprised how often it's someone named Karen. He gave me a discount and a double bolt for security. By midnight, I finally sat down in peace. But peace didn't last long. The next morning, I got an email from the HOA board. Apparently, Karen had filed a formal complaint against me. The subject line read, "Hostility and unauthorized cabin use." I nearly spit out my coffee reading it. It was written like I was the criminal. I immediately typed up a reply attaching video proof. I included the police report number, my property deed, everything. Then I added one final line, "If Karen is not formally reprimanded, I'll be taking legal action." I copied every board member I could find. 2 hours later, I got a call from Nancy, the HOA treasurer. "So sorry," she sighed. "We didn't know she had a key." "She shouldn't have had a key," I replied. Nancy agreed and promised swift action from the board. Apparently, I wasn't the first one Karen had violated. Over the next few days, things escalated in strange ways. Karen left notes on my cabin, door passive-aggressive ones. "Maybe next time, communicate your schedule." One read. I took photos, documented everything, and stayed calm. Her reign was starting to unravel, and she knew it. A week later, the board voted to remove Karen's privileges. She was no longer allowed to access community property keys. She lost her event coordinator title and public posting rights. Even her close allies began to distance themselves quietly. Turns out, no one likes getting cops called on neighbors. But Karen didn't go quietly. The final straw came too. Weeks later, a neighbor forwarded me an email thread from Karen. She had tried organizing a petition to ban me, claimed I was unstable and a threat to community unity. Only 2 people responded, and both were clearly trolls. That email thread was the last nail in her coffin. I printed it all, added it to the growing report. The HOA board issued her an official warning notice. If she violated one more rule, she'd be fined heavily. And better yet, voted off the board entirely. I never saw her again after that. Her house went quiet, her garden overgrown. She stopped attending meetings and events altogether. Rumor had it she put her cabin up for sale. Couldn't stand the shame or the fact she finally lost. Justice, it turns out, makes a good neighbor. And as for me, I added a new camera system just in case. Kept my property locked up tight and secured. But most importantly, I kept the grill. Because damn it, after all, that earned a BBQ. And yes, it tasted like victory. It had been 2 quiet weeks since the incident. No more uninvited guests, no passive-aggressive notes, nothing. The silence was a relief, but it made me cautious. I didn't trust calm when Karen was still technically next door. It felt like the eye of a storm. I kept my new cameras running 24/7, just in case. 3 angles: front door, back deck, and driveway view. Motion alerts pinged my phone like clockwork. Usually it was just a squirrel or falling leaves. But one night something different showed up. It was 2:13 a.m. when the alert buzzed. Bleary-eyed, I grabbed my phone and opened the app. A shadow moved across the far side of the porch. It paused by the door, crouching low. Then, the unmistakable flash of a phone's flashlight. Someone was taking pictures of my cabin. I jumped out of bed, adrenaline pumping fast. Quietly, I slipped on shoes and grabbed a flashlight. I didn't go outside, just peeked through the blinds. The figure darted away the second my porch light clicked on. He ran in the direction of Karen's property. I reported it to the HOA the next morning. I didn't accuse anyone directly, but it wasn't hard to guess. Only one person had a vendetta and a motive. Nancy, the treasurer, replied with concern. "Let us handle this. It won't happen again." That afternoon, I finally got some answers. A board member named Joel stopped by in person. He was the quiet, rational one on the HOA Karen's bin. "Acting out," he told me carefully. "She's blaming you for everything. The board's vote, her reputation. Apparently, she'd lost a few clients from her side business. Karen was a decor consultant, whatever that meant. She helped rich people color match their deck chairs. Or at least, she used to. Now, her calendar was wide open and her mood sour. She'd been spiraling ever since the BBQ incident. I felt a mix of pity and satisfaction, but I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. "I just want to be left alone," I told Joel. He nodded and assured me the board agreed. "And she's on a very short leash now," he said. But that leash wasn't quite short enough. 2 days later, the final drama began. It was a Saturday morning, clear and warm. I was sipping coffee on the deck, finally relaxing. Then I heard the unmistakable sound of hammering. Clang, clang, from the property line. Curious, I went to check. Karen was building a fence. Not just any fence, an ugly 6-foot-high wooden wall. It ran along the side of my deck and windows. She hadn't given notice, hadn't marked the boundary. It looked like it was half on my land. And where she was using HOA maintenance tools. I walked over calmly, camera rolling in hand. "Karen, what are you doing?" I asked evenly. She barely glanced at me, installing a privacy barrier on my property. I pointed at the post hole. "That's not your land," she snapped without looking up. "I've had the survey done," I said flatly. She snorted. "Surveys can be inaccurate." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you have a better one?" "No," she admitted, "but I have intuition about the boundaries." It took everything in me not to laugh. Instead, I pulled out my email receipts. A licensed surveyor had measured the lot 2 months prior. I had copies, maps, and flagged stakes still in place. The post she'd just dug was 2 feet onto my side. "You'll need to stop," I said firmly. Karen rolled her eyes and kept hammering, so I called the cops again. Same officer arrived, different day, same routine. He walked over, inspected the property markers. "Ma'am, you're encroaching." On his property, he said. Karen crossed her arms like a child, then he should put up a fence first. "He doesn't want a fence," the officer replied. Karen pouted. "He's invading my airspace with his presence." "I'm sorry," the cop said, blinking. "His airspace?" Karen nodded like it made sense. "My peace is violated," he sighed, writing notes on his pad. "Ma'am." "Stop construction immediately," he concluded. Karen dropped the hammer dramatically, muttering under her breath, and she turned to me and sneered. "You're obsessed with me. This is harassment." I ignored her, smiling politely for the camera. The HOA fined her the next day. Unauthorized. Construction, $750. Use of HOA tools for personal work, $500. Trespassing complaints still under review. Pending legal, Karen had officially become the neighborhood pariah. And still, she refused to give up. 3 more weeks passed without major incidents. Then, just as summer bloomed, I got a package. No return address, just my name and cabin number. Inside was a stack of printed photos. All of me sitting, grilling, reading on my own property. The message was clear. "I'm watching you." I reported it immediately to the sheriff's office. Stalking, even subtle, was still stalking. The photos had timestamps and angles from Karen's yard. I handed them over along with past footage. An official warning was issued by the deputy. Karen didn't deny it. "I'm allowed to photograph." "What I can see?" she insisted. "But you crossed the line when you mailed it," they said. She rolled her eyes but nodded begrudgingly. That visit apparently was the final straw for her, because 2 days later her for sale sign went up. I watched her pack slowly over the next month. No neighbors waved goodbye. No one helped her load. She left in silence. Just her and a trailer of resentment. When the moving truck finally pulled away, I exhaled. The weight of her presence lifted like smoke and wind. The cabin felt different. Now lighter somehow. I repainted the deck, trimmed the garden beds, hung string lights, and planted sunflowers by the fence line. Even grilled burgers just to reclaim the memory. This was my space again, free of drama. The new neighbors arrived. Quietly, just a retired couple. They brought a pie on their first weekend actual humans. No complaints, no hidden cameras, no HOA threats. They even asked about the grill before using it. I told them the whole story over iced tea. We laughed for hours, and that's when I realized something big. This wasn't just about Karen or fences or BBQs. It was about boundaries, the ones we let people cross, the ones we need to defend, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. I learned to stand up for my peace, to speak up, document, and call out BS, to value my solitude enough to protect it fiercely, and to never, ever trust someone with your spare key. Even if they seem like just a neighbor, especially if they call themselves an HOA hero. So now, I keep my cameras on, my locks changed, and my coffee hot. The grill gets used every weekend, rain or shine. My dog has full backyard access. No more Karen complaints. The fence line, now marked with sunflowers and humor. I even painted a sign, Karen-free zone. The quiet after Karen moved out was surreal. For the first time in months, the cabin truly felt mine. No petty notes, no weird stares from her. Windows. No surprise BBQs or unsolicited community initiatives. Just birds, breeze, and blissful silence. The new neighbors, Sam and Marlene, were perfect. They were retired teachers who loved gardening and puzzles. They waved every morning, always with fresh coffee or jam. Sam even helped me repair my back steps. It was the kind of neighbor I forgot existed. But peace doesn't come without shadows. 3. Weeks after Karen's departure, a letter arrived. Not an email, an actual letter, hand-addressed. It was stamped from the next town over. I opened it cautiously, not recognizing the handwriting. But once I started reading, my stomach dropped. It was from Karen's lawyer. She was filing a formal property dispute against me. Claimed the fence line was incorrect based on historic markers, that I'd stolen 2 feet of her land, and that she had photographic evidence to back it. I laughed, then immediately felt a twinge of dread. It wasn't just petty now, it was strategic. She knew she couldn't fight through the HOA anymore, so she aimed higher, slower, and more expensively. I scanned the letter twice, checking for errors. It was full of vague threats and dramatic accusations. I forwarded it to my real estate attorney immediately. He reviewed the letter and chuckled. Over the phone. She has no case, but she's trying to exhaust you. Classic Karen move, drain energy, time, and patience. But he said we had nothing to worry about. Still, we responded officially firm and professional. We reattached the survey results, legal lot dimensions, photos. My lawyer even included drone footage from above. Our tone was polite but ironclad. This matter is closed. Any further claims will be dismissed. Karen didn't reply after that, but she wasn't finished either. Sam came by one afternoon looking concerned. You see the listing update on her property? He asked. I hadn't checked. It had been pending for weeks. Turns out she sold it to a real estate investor, a company called Apex Timber Developments. That name raised alarms immediately. I looked them up. Big, faceless firm with bad reviews. Buys properties, cuts corners, and flips them, one said. Another, avoid, they'll sue neighbors over. Tree lines. So I braced myself all over again. Within a month, trucks started showing up. Noisy diesel-belching trucks with raw lumber and tools. They tore out Karen's flower beds and patio completely. In their place, concrete slabs and a prefab cabin extension. Was the opposite of peaceful. Then the complaints began. First it was the noise nail guns, drills, saws. Then came the dumping scraps left on community trails. Finally, the workers. Blocked my driveway twice. I tried being diplomatic at first. Spoke with the foreman, offered suggestions, stayed calm. They mostly ignored me. One guy even laughed and said, "We bought this lot to turn a profit, not make friends." So I took pictures, emailed the HOA board. Nancy replied instantly, "We've already had 3 complaints." She promised a meeting would be called soon, but the next week brought the worst. Surprise yet? I arrived at my cabin Friday evening as usual. Except this time, something was different, very different. The boundary flags from my old survey were gone. In their place, new ones, shifted several feet over, right into my side yard. I walked the edge, heart thumping. Apex had literally moved. The lot line markers. I checked my documents, pulled GPS coordinates, verified everything. They were lying boldly, blatantly, and on paper. The real kicker? A bright orange stake labeled future driveway? It sat smack in the middle of my garden. I called my lawyer before I even unpacked. He advised documenting everything, then filing an injunction. He wasn't surprised either. These companies push boundaries, pun intended, I guess. But I wasn't going to let it slide. I filed the injunction on Monday morning. By Tuesday, construction halted completely. Apex's legal team reached out, requesting a meeting. My lawyer agreed only if it was on record. So Thursday afternoon, we met at the local courthouse. They brought to suit side, brought facts. They tried to argue confusion over markers. We countered with time-stamped drone photos and permits. They offered a mutual redrawing of the boundary. We declined. Hard. By the end, they backed off completely. The judge granted a cease order against boundary tampering. Pex was fined for non-permitted construction near the line. They were ordered to restore the yard to original layout. Sale was now legally connected to a nuisance suit. I could almost feel her fuming from wherever she was. By the end of the week, work resumed quietly. There's no more loud tools, no more debris piles. The crews kept their distance, avoided eye contact. The driveway was never mentioned again. In my garden, thriving, untouched, still mine. In a weird twist, the final inspection failed. Turns out, Apex didn't file the right electrical permits. Their shiny cabin extension sat useless for 3 weeks. Buyers backed out, and the property sat empty. Eventually, the listing was pulled completely. The project flopped like a fish in a frying pan. A month later, I heard it sold again. It's time to a family, not a developer. Parents, 2 kids, and a golden retriever named Moose. The kind of neighbors that make peace feel permanent. They even apologized on behalf of the last owner. Whoever Karen was, we're not her, they laughed. I believed them. They planted a cherry tree where Karen's patio used to be. Marlene called it poetic justice in bloom. We toasted with lemonade under it that weekend. Now, the cabin isn't just a retreat, it's a triumph, every corner of it feels like a hard-won victory. It's no more camera alerts, no lawyer calls, no passive notes. Just calm, nature, and friendly neighbors. Exactly what I bought this place for. Karen may have moved on, but her legend remains. Sometimes people ask, whatever happened to her? I just smile and say she lost a power struggle to a grill, because in the end, that's what it was. Control, ego, and beef. Literally and figuratively. I framed one of the BBQ photos. It's the one where she's mid-yell, pointing at the grill. It sits in my entryway with a small plaque. Exhibit A. Why I lock my doors? It makes every guest laugh on their way in. Some stories stay with you forever. Not because of the drama, but because of the lesson. Don't give bullies an inch thale. Take your garden. Document everything. Know your rights. Never let anyone borrow your spare key. Especially not someone named Karen. I thought the Karen saga had ended for good. No more surprise BBQs, legal threats, or property disputes. The cabin finally became what it was meant to be, peaceful. But trouble has a way of looping back around, especially when it leaves breadcrumbs behind. It started with a voicemail from Nancy. She sounded hesitant, like she didn't want to bother me. "Hey, there's something you should probably know," she began. We got a call from someone asking about the HOA. I frowned. Someone was almost always code for Karen. She's asking if she can attend meetings remotely, Nancy explained. Claims she still owns stakeholding interest in the community. That made 0 sense. She sold the property months ago. She says her name is still on the shared deeds. I blinked, confused. Karen had shared deeds, apparently. She'd only sold 80% of the property. The final 20% was left in a silent partner trust, which meant technically, legally, Karen still had a minor claim. She used this loophole to try rejoining the HOA board. Nancy sighed. We're reviewing it, but it's messy. I thanked her and immediately called my lawyer. He wasn't shocked. This is her trying to reinsert herself. Silent partners rarely get voting rights, he explained. It's just enough for her to cause friction. He promised to dig into the deed filings deeper. Meanwhile, I started noticing small things around the cabin. My trash bins had been moved twice. Someone left a flyer on my door. HOA cleanup day. No one else got one, just me and the contact email, an alias I recognized, K.G, Community Matters, @outlook.com, Karen's initials. I knew her tricks by now. She was trying to operate under a fake name, posting under local forums, responding to HOA polls. All with a fresh identity but the same venom. It was like dealing with a ghost in khakis. I created a burner email to test a theory. I wrote to KG, asking about cabin lot rentals. The response was almost instant. We don't rent directly, but I oversee access approvals. Came the signature, Karen G, community admin. Community admin. Not even subtle anymore. I sent the screenshot to Nancy and Joel. Within an hour. The board had called an emergency vote. They issued a formal cease and desist against Karen's fake role. The email account was reported and blocked by the server host. Still, Karen had another card to play. That weekend, Sam flagged me down as I arrived. You won't believe this, he said, handing me a flyer. It was for a Karen G wellness retreat, scheduled at a rental cabin just 2 lots down. Promised community cleansing and energy reset events. My eye twitched involuntarily. The flyer had yoga, grilling, and intentional fire circles. The main photo, a shot of my cabin's back deck. She used my property photo without permission. It was clearly from the BBQ day last year. That was the last straw. I emailed my lawyer again with attachments. This time, we filed a digital copyright infringement notice and reported the listing on the event site she used. We also forwarded the retreat to county code enforcement. Hosting. Paid events without permits? Illegal? The retreat was scheduled for Saturday morning. By Friday night, a cease order had been delivered. Karen, still pretending to be KG, emailed attendees nervously. Event postponed due to unforeseen interference, she wrote. One attendee responded publicly. Is this about the grill lady? Yeah. I couldn't help but laugh. But the joke didn't end there. Someone shared Karen's email chain with a local Facebook group. The post went semi-viral in our county. Headline, Former HOA Queen Tries Wellness Cult in Woods. The comments ranged from roasting her flyer to mocking her poses. A meme was born. Karen's Cleanse Camp 2025. I thought she'd lay low after that, and for a bit, she did, but she wasn't done being a nuisance entirely. Instead of showing up in person, she went digital. Fake Yelp reviews started popping up for the neighborhood. One accused me of illegal tree cutting and noise abuse. Another said, beware, neighbor spies on guests with drones. I knew it was her instantly. The style was unmistakable, passive, petty, and overpunctuated. So I flagged them, screenshot them, and sent them off. This time, I contacted Yelp's legal department directly. Karen's IP address had already been flagged by other reports. Her reviews were removed within 48 hours. That's when she tried. To target the HOA instead, she filed an official complaint to the state homeowner council. Claimed our HOA was biased, toxic, and manipulated by men, named Joel and Nancy directly in the filing. She even referenced me calling me an online aggressor. But the case was dismissed without revenue standing. Karen's final gasp was almost sad. A month later, the cabin she once owned went back up for sale. Not the whole thing, just her 20% silent share. She tried auctioning it off to investors. But no one wants 20% of a hostile cabin share, especially when the host has a history of police reports. Eventually, it was bought out by the current owners. They added a hot tub, a vegetable garden, and wind chimes. Every time I pass it, I feel a sense of closure. That air while the Karen air is finally over, and my grill, still standing strong. Sometimes people ask if the story is true. I tell them yes, every ridiculous part of it. The BBQ, the fence, the photos, the retreat, because some people will do anything for control, even when they no longer have the keys. The real lesson isn't just about HOAs. It's about setting boundaries, no matter how annoying. It's about knowing your rights, defending your space. And yes, sometimes it's about having a good lawyer, especially when a Karen enters your life. Now, I live with peace and preparedness. Motion lights, updated locks, garden cameras, but I also leave the gate open again because my neighbors now, actually decent people. The Golden Retriever is a great guard dog. I framed Karen's event flyer beside the old BBQ photo. A little memory wall of what not to do. My guests always laugh when they read it. It reminds me, survive the storm and plant better roots. Even if those roots grow right where a grill once stood, with Karen finally gone for good things, we're calm. The neighborhood settled into a peaceful rhythm again. We had our first real community BBQ permission, kind with shared playlists and actual consent. No cops, no trespassing, no drama. But peace has a price, especially in HOA territory. A few board members started pushing for new rules, which is preventative, they claimed, to keep things from escalating again. Nancy raised her eyebrow, but agreed to a review. I watched carefully, not liking the sudden policy surge. First, it was security cameras now required in shared spaces. Then, grill sizes were limited to standard dimensions, and noise hours were shortened even on weekends. One guy suggested mandatory sign-ins for all cabin guests. It was Karen logic in new packaging. I spoke up at the next meeting. Didn't we just get rid of this exact nonsense? Nancy nodded. Joel rubbed his temples in frustration, but the newer members were firm. We just want control. There it was. The magic Karen word, control. They even pulled up an old HOA clause for backup. I reviewed the bylaws that night. It was buried in Section D14, Emergency Governance Clause. It allowed temporary rules during community disruption events. Apparently, Karen's BBQ and fence escapade counted. They wanted to make the temporary rules permanent. I knew I couldn't let that happen, so I proposed something radical. If we're revisiting rules, I said, why not review all of them? A full audit of the HOA charter, line by line. Several nodded reluctantly. Joel smiled behind his glasses, passed by a narrow vote, 4-3. And just like that, the Karen Legacy Review began. We called it the Charter Reset Committee. Each member got assigned a section to research. We compared our bylaws with state HOA guidelines, and what we found shocked all of us. Half the rules were illegal or expired. Some hadn't been updated since 1996. Others violated state property rights directly. One rule still required paper ballots via fax. Another defined unauthorized guests as anyone not pre-approved by Karen. Yes, her actual name was written in once. Nancy was livid. This isn't governance, it's petty control. So we voted again. Full rewrite, public draft. It took 3 weeks of late nights and debates. Some members resisted, claiming tradition and community values. But the majority sided with logic. We posted the new draft in the community forum. It was clear, fair, and legally sound. Guest rules were simplified, fence policies clarified, grill regulations gone entirely. A quiet cheer went up in the group chat, but not everyone was pleased. An anonymous email hit the HOA inbox. You're erasing our legacy. You'll regret this. It came from a burner address, no name, no IP, but the tone, unmistakable. Karen still had fingers in the pie. We traced the source to a proxy service. The message had been sent through a relay server. But but attached was a file, HOA_crisis_report.pdf. It was filled with screenshots of old disputes. Photos of me, Nancy, Joe Levin, Marlene's dog. This isn't just about bylaws, Nancy muttered. It's about control again. We pressed forward. Anyway, finishing the final vote. The new HOA charter passed with 82% approval, the highest in neighborhood history. The new rules went live that Friday, that same night. A white van appeared near the woods. It parked just outside the property line, lights off. Someone stepped out briefly, placed a package, then left. The camera alert within seconds. Sam called me. You see that too? We approached the package carefully together. It was a thick manila envelope, duct taped shut. On the front, for the real HOA. We opened it back at my cabin, gloves on. Inside were printed screenshots, old board emails, and one photo. A blurry image of Karen, watching from a distance. She was still nearby. The return address, a mailbox store 2 towns over, matched the one from her retreat flyer. Apparently, Karen never truly left, just lingered in shadows. Nancy contacted the sheriff the next morning. They added it to the harassment file. The envelope was filed under low-level threat. Not criminals, just weird and obsessive. Still, the sheriff visited the old Karen lot. It was empty, clean, and rented out to new guests. Karen was nowhere. To be found, weeks passed. Nothing else showed up. Then one morning, Joel pulled me aside. There's a new applicant for the open board seat, he said. The name, Christina Galloway. Same initials. Similar email. Same writing style. Karen had just changed her name slightly. We denied the application immediately, but she'd already gotten into the forum again. Posted under KG policy voice, she stirred up old arguments, pushed for guest restrictions and deck usage rules, claimed new rules were destroying community tradition. No one took the bait except one guy. His name was Ben, new owner, fresh to HOA life. He liked structure, and Karen's posts appealed to him. He messaged me directly. You sure this KG isn't legit? I sent him the file. The barbecue. Photo, he replied 5 minutes later. Never mind, I'm out. It became a neighborhood joke. Don't go full KG, we'd say during meetings. Even Moose barked once when someone said her name. Still, we kept our guard up just in case. Karen had proved she was nothing if not persistent, but the final end came unexpectedly. One sunny morning, a moving truck arrived at Karen's old place. A woman stepped out and told her, white hair and calm. She was Karen's mother. Apparently, the cabin had been jointly owned all along, and now she was taking full control. We met her that afternoon. Her name was Gloria, and she brought cookies. She apologized for her daughter's behavior twice. She's in a different place now, she said gently. I didn't ask where that was. Gloria planted lavender and roses in the front yard. She added wind chimes and a bird bath. Repainted the deck and donated Karen's patio set. Said she just wanted a place to read. We believed her. And we exhaled. Finally, the board meetings now end with laughter. BBQs are frequent, drama rare. The new charter holds firm, and the community is thriving. People look out for one another, not spy on them. It took a war to earn the peace. And me, I still have the grill, of course. Still have the sign, Karen Free Zone. And yes, the framed BBQ photo remains untouched. A daily reminder of what happens when you don't back down, because sometimes the best revenge is calm.